Okay, welcome everyone to VR Bytes EDU, Bitespeed's semi-monthly VR webinar. We are talking about with school getting back in session and everything kind of starting to spin up again, conversations about VR and its uses in high school and in college are top of mind for a lot of people. So today, what we're going to cover is just kind of a crash course into what schools are looking for as far as hardware is concerned. What should I look at buying if I'm a school that's interested in VR? We're just going to have a pretty open discussion about kind of what's out there and what people are currently using in their education environments. Before we get started, I just want to say, for those of you that are watching live, please drop your questions in the Q&A or the chat. I have those pulled up and we'll get to them as they roll in. Otherwise, there will be time at the end of the webinar to go over any questions that I missed. For those of you that are watching on YouTube afterwards, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for finding Bitespeed's YouTube channel. Feel free to hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified whenever we post our webinar recordings. And likewise, please drop your questions in the comments below. We'd love to answer them and have that dialogue continue even after the webinar is done today. So with that, I am going to share my screen here and we will get rolling. I want PowerPoint here. Okay. And we are good with the screen share. Okay, so first off, a little quick introduction. My name is Josh Knutson. I'm the Esports and VR Solutions Director here at Bitespeed. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years now. I handle all of our kind of VR and esports products. Work very closely with the sales staff here to be a resource for the customers, the schools that we work with, just trying to pass along the knowledge about virtual reality and how it's used within a school environment, within that education sphere, answer questions for people that have them, and really just be another point of contact here at Bitespeed that you can get a hold of on a pretty consistent basis. So my contact information is up on the screen. Would love to chat with anybody afterwards if they have deeper questions or they want to do a one-on-one conversation about VR. Absolutely happy to have those conversations. I should have my Calendly link up here as well. I'll drop it in the chat. It's calendly.com/Josh-Knutson. It's a great way to schedule a one-on-one meeting. And like I said, we can have those conversations about VR and about, what you're doing in your school. So I'm your presenter for today, flying solo. We have a great team surrounding me at Bitespeed. We have two team members here that work directly with the Gravity Gaming stuff. That's our esports and VR product lines. Technical administrator Henry Burke is an awesome resource on the more hardware tech side of things. If you're ever having issues or wondering about how to integrate stuff within your network or have just generalized machine questions. And Topher Johnson is our graphic designer. He can help with room scale layout, mocking up what it might look like in your school. If you have questions about how we could put a lab together, the team here, we'd love to work with you on those type of projects as well. And then finally, Corinne Hoisington is our fantastic, amazing VR trainer. She's helped a ton of schools kind of start to implement VR into their classrooms, into their ecosystems. Works really closely with the teachers on how to prepare curriculum and those tie-ins to nationwide standards. She's a teacher herself, and she's a fantastic resource. So we've got an awesome team built around me here at Bitespeed to help with all your VR questions. And any of us would love to talk with you if you ever have needs or questions or comments about VR. So enough about us and about me. Let's dive into kind of our topics for today. So we're going to have kind of a real quick crash course on VR, just talk about, the different distinctions between headsets, the differences between, some of the different options that are out there, either lightweight, kind of your consumer grade stuff, or even the high end enterprise level hardware. We'll talk about, the different options that are out there right now and kind of the ones that Bitespeed recommends for an education environment. And then we'll go through a real quick kind of getting started guide. And then, like I said before, we'll have time for questions at the end of the webinar. It's going to be a little shorter presentation today. Should last about half an hour, so nothing too crazy, and definitely easy to consume if you are in your prep period or looking for some quick answers. This will be a fairly short webinar, but lots of great content that can hopefully spur the discussion in your school. So getting started here, just a crash course on VR and what it is and how everything works together. Really, we want to talk about the distinction between 3 degrees of freedom headsets and 6 degrees of freedom headsets. So the DOF or DOF. Those degrees of freedom really will detail how headsets interact with their environments, and you as a person within that environment, a consumer of that content, whether you're interacting with it or not. So 3 degrees of freedom, this is kind of your think of like 3D video. You're often in a fixed position and can view your surroundings. So that first little stick figure guy on the screen here, he's got the ability to tilt his head left or right, look down or up, and then finally swivel side to side, left and right. So those are kind of like the 3 degrees of freedom that you would commonly associate with something like a Google Expedition, or like I said, 3D YouTube videos, things like that, to where you're watching content around you, but you're not really moving, or when you are moving, it's from a fixed position to another fixed position where they've set up a camera to record that experience. Think of like 3D job shadowing. This is a really, really popular way to do 3D DOF content consumption. If you're in a drywall site and you're learning how to, you're watching somebody perform that task, you're typically in one position. You can kind of move your head around a little bit and see, the different angles and be able to look at what the camera is pointed to. Whereas a 6 degree of freedom headset adds the ability to move. It adds movement and depth to an environment. So when we talk about the 6 degree of freedom headsets, again, it's got the tilt, the forward and back, the left and right, all of those movements with your head. But now we're adding in the ability to go on the X, Y, and Z axes. So forward, backward, actually taking steps forward through the environment. Moving side to side, not being stuck in one central location, and finally getting the ability to change your perspective, moving up and down, which is also another really cool different addition that you can see with the 6 degree of freedom headset. So oftentimes those 3 DOF headsets are a lot more lightweight. They might be a little bit more budget friendly, but they're certainly limited in what they can do and the different content that they can interact with, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Whereas the 6 degree of free headsets have a lot more power behind them. That's going to be your traditional tethered headset, kind of what you would associate, kind of like the interacting with the environments, whether it be a game or an educational app, things like that. That's going to be your most common type, and definitely the one that we have seen the most success with on the Bitespeed side is implementing into the high school education space and even beyond that. So just another real quick example of what a 3 degree of freedom experience might look like. If you've ever seen the Google Expeditions, the 3D videos, you've got the polar bear on screen. They've gone out into, the Arctic and filmed this polar bear walking around in the environment, walking around in the tundra, and they have a camera on a pole. That's you inside the headset. And you have the ability to, turn your head and look around on the web-based portal. You could drag the mouse screen and be able to kind of rotate where the camera is looking at, but you can't actually I want to go closer to that polar bear. You are limited in the fact that, it's got these 2 arrows on the screen here, right in the middle of the experience. And you have the arrow to go kind of off to the right more, and then maybe kind of angled back to the right. And that's essentially moving from one camera position to the next camera position of where they film that experience. So you can't actually control where you're going to move. It's kind of a predetermined a space that you can go from point A to point B. So you're on rails essentially, and you don't have that agency to be able to be like, yeah, I want to go up and get like a foot away from this polar bear. Still great VR experience, still valuable, but certainly limited in what you can do. If we look at an example of a 6 degree of freedom example, if you've ever heard of Google's Tilt Brush app, it's a super common application for a number of different subjects, not just art. But it adds depth to that environment that you're in. You get loaded up in a blank canvas, a blank black room, and you can walk forward and backward. And you see kind of on the screen here where she has, some plants and flowers that she's drawing. Some of that is closer to us and closer to where, we see it from the screen here as a flat video, screenshot that I grabbed. But she's also working on stuff that's directly below her. You can see a plant that she's drawn in the background. So you have that, like I said, that agency to move with the 6 degree of freedom headset from the foreground all the way to the background and kind of in between and interact with your environment to a broader scope. Certainly, this is kind of, like we said, the more common higher end experiences are kind of, what you would expect from, loading into a VR environment and wanting to be able to interact with that content. So let's talk about some of the current examples for hardware that are out there right now. Like I said, we kind of looked at the distinctions with the degrees of freedom, but there's a lot more to it. You have your lightweight devices, like I mentioned, Class VR, Google Cardboard. You're sliding a phone in, you're watching a 3D video, or you have kind of that like point and click adventure style of interaction with your VR environment. It's not a lot of manipulation. It's not a lot of really that hands-on interacting that you get with some of the more higher to mid-level to higher end headsets that we see on screen. Certainly the Google Cardboard and the Class VR, they absolutely have their place. These are great introductions to VR. If you're looking at, something like lower age ranges, so middle school, maybe even elementary school, getting them to be able to watch those 3D videos and really being immersed in that environment, but, not really moving around, not interacting, but still being able to consume that content. Whereas with the Oculus and Vive options that are out there right now, and certainly there's other manufacturers, but these are kind of the common four. You have the two controllers, you have the ability to actually create while you're in the experience or interact with whatever app that you're working in, whether it's Tilt Brush and you're drawing, or maybe it's Organon and you're pulling body parts off of a skeleton, kind of looking at the different things that make up the human body from an anatomy standpoint. There's a ton of different applications out there, and having the two controllers and the ability with the Oculus 2, that standalone, the Quest 2, that standalone option that's not connected to a PC. It's all self-contained, or like the Rift S that is connected to a PC. Or maybe you're working with the Vive options with Cosmos and Pro Eye and some of the other things that they have out there. You're getting a look at more of what you can do within those experiences. I will kind of know it before we get started and look into like the getting started guide. There's a really big thing that's happened over the last year that's really impacted the options for schools, especially with the Oculus headsets. So last year, Facebook announced that it was going to require all new VR headsets from Oculus to require a Facebook account to log in and be able to use the VR headset and consume that content and be able to interact with the different things that you could load up into these headsets. Now, from a consumer standpoint, that is what it is. It's not, for neither here nor there, for just like I'm Josh, I have a VR headset at home. I like playing Beat Saber or some of the other, like just game titles that I want to consume, and be able to interact with my VR headset. That's fine. I log into my Facebook account and I'll deal with it. But from an education standpoint, that's been a really big hurdle for a lot of schools because either, Facebook with student data privacy, just being able to, have social media accessible within the school through your firewall or school policies, that's rocked the boat quite a bit in the different hardware options that schools are considering. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule. There are certainly schools that are still purchasing Oculus headsets and using them in that education environment, but it's tied to a Facebook account. and to be able to access content, add more content to a library, do even things like warranty repairs or recalls or things like that. It has to be tied to a real person's Facebook account. And that's, like I said, been a hurdle that a lot of schools have had to look at. One other quick note about the Oculus headset is that the Rift S was discontinued this past summer. Oculus is kind of moving all into the Quest line. So the Quest 2 is their only headset that they're manufacturing moving forward. It's a great, fantastic headset. Like I said, it's standalone, doesn't require a PC to use, but it is the only option right now out there for Oculus headsets moving forward. You can still do things like buy a link cable and link up your Quest 2 to a PC to access something like a Steam library or your Oculus Store on a PC to be able to download more software and have stuff stored on a PC. And that's definitely an option out there. But the Rift S, that was its previous tethered counterpart, they've stopped production on that as of summer of 22. On the Vive side, on the flip side of that, we talked about the Facebook requirement for Oculus. That doesn't exist for HTC. So a lot of the conversations that we have at Bitespeed, kind of recommending what hardware you should buy as a school, we kind of tend to lean towards the HTC side because there isn't that Facebook requirement. And they've actually built out some really cool opportunities strictly for education. We're one of Vive's bigger education partners. The schools that we work with, just being able to have a pulse on what they're looking for. And I think Vive is really starting to understand the education market a little bit more, understand the needs that you have as a school, and is coming out with some really awesome products in the form of software and management stuff that we previously haven't had. So Vive is really kind of our main recommendation when it comes to hardware to look at. And we'll talk more about the different headsets here in a second. Getting into like a really quick getting started guide, there's two things that we kind of need to do before we look at, okay, what are we going to buy? What are we going to put into the school? Number one, I think, is you need to determine your use case. And what I mean by that is looking at, your school as a whole. Let's say it's Bitespeed High School. Which students do I want using my virtual reality gear? What grades? Are they special populations like special education, or some of my, other students that, need a little bit extra help? Either, they really thrive in that hands-on learning environment, or maybe they have other, needs that VR might be a really awesome way to connect with them. Definitely don't discount those special populations within the school, taking a look at, like I said, which students are going to use the gear. After you've kind of decided that, then you want to definitely look at the subjects that are going to be, using VR to their advantage. We've got a couple of different apps here on the screen. Bitespeed.com has a ton of applications that we have kind of listed out in this grid format, to where you can go through and look subject by subject and see, okay, all of the math apps that are out there that I want, my 7th and 8th grade math students to really dive in with VR, maybe get an introduction to, some of your high school students doing like CalcFlow and learning calculus with that VR application. I mentioned Organon before, a biology anatomy style application, maybe geared more towards the sciences. And we're going to have like our 11th and 12th grade science kids doing that, while our middle school science classes are going to do something like InCell, which is more of like instead of its 3D anatomy that you can pull things apart, it's actually more of like a roller coaster version of running through the bloodstream and being able to look at different things inside the body. So there's a ton of different subjects out there that have VR applications for them. Our website, like I said, bitespeed.com. If you go to the solutions tab under VR, we have a link right there to a big page, kind of lists everything out in a nice grid format on the different subjects that are out there, a lot of the different apps that we've found work well in that education environment. And you can kind of take a look and see, okay, I can start to get an idea of which teachers are going to really grab hold of this and really use it in what they're teaching, stuff that goes alongside, the national standards that they have to meet and teach. and then which students are really going to be able to use this VR and find some value in it, rather than just like, oh, hey, go and play a game. So after you've got your use case kind of nailed down, you need to take a look at, the right headset for that use case. So like I said, Vive is kind of our recommendation as far as the, brand of headset that I would say works well in that school environment. And they've got 3 really great options out right now that we've been consistently seeing, schools purchase and use in their education environments. Number 1 is the Vive Focus Plus. That's that white one on the left side of your screen here. That is a standalone option. So it does not require a PC to be able to run the headset like, the Cosmos and the Pro I do as tethered headsets. So Focus Plus is standalone. It's battery powered. And this is great for, those schools that are looking for full classroom deployments. We have worked with a school district in Kentucky. It's the Jefferson County School District right around Louisville. And they actually, in conjunction with the elementary schools in that district, working with a graduate student from the university there in Louisville. They've been able to, push out Focus Plus headsets to, I think it was 8 or 9 of the elementary schools in that district, and be able to do full classroom, sessions with their VR headsets with their elementary students, which is super cool. So Shannon Putman, who is a fantastic resource and kind of the thought leader for this entire project down in Kentucky, she has sectioned things out to where, they might be doing a history lesson in like a 5th grade class or a 4th grade class. And they might be learning about, a specific president or maybe it's the moon landing or something like that. To where, they do their normal lesson plan and teach through, the normal things that they're already doing in the classroom. And then every student in that classroom pulls out a stool. They sit on the stool, all, 15, 20 students put on a headset, and then they're in their own virtual environments. They're not necessarily working together in a shared experience, although that is a possibility and something that Vive is working on, more and more every day. So, it might be, let's watch the moon landing in VR. To where, okay, I'm a student in this class. I'm going to put my headset on and I'm watching this moon landing. I'm interacting with that environment, doing different things within that experience. And then my classmate next to me might be doing, has the exact same headset on, but might be, a section ahead in the moon landing experience, or whereas I'm like looking at some of the spaceships. He might be looking at the spacesuit or something like that. So shared experience in the fact that, we're all looking at the same experience, the same app, but it's self-contained to what I want to go and do within that experience or where my progress is at. So there's tons of tie-ins with large scale deployments like this. Working in individuals or small groups, talking about, what they're doing, and then all having that chance of, brainstorming and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do this in this phishing app or something like that, to where they can talk about it in a small group, and then, come up with, okay, the next time we load up this app, this is what we're going to do. They can all take the headset, put it on, and go. The Focus Plus, it is great for that elementary to middle school age range, up to, some of the introduction of high school VR. However, it does have a little bit smaller of a library. It won't run all of the higher end applications that are out there. So it is a little limited, just, because it's a standalone option and we don't have computer hardware helping it out in running some of those things. But it's a great introduction to VR. And it's an awesome application in a lot of use cases. The other cool thing is that Vive is currently bundling an education bundle with this headset. So for $1,000, you can get a headset and 25 apps, 25 science apps, sorry, and then 5 history apps, so 30 in total, all bundled in with this headset for $1,000 straight up. And then, obviously, if you have a classroom set of 20, we're looking at a $20,000 deployment, but we have headsets for all 20 kids. And then there's also applications, experiences already downloaded on the headset. And then you also get teaching materials that line up with NGSS standards, kind of lesson plan type materials that go along with what you're doing in that app, whether it's, okay, we're doing fetal pig dissection today. Everybody's going to put our Focus Plus headset on, be able to go through that app, follow the checklist on this lesson plan guide. And it's a great way to kind of get your feet wet with VR and have some teaching materials bundled right in with the great headset. Moving into, the Vive Cosmos and the Pro Eye, these are tethered headsets, great for small groups. They are a little bit more expensive. So, being able to get not necessarily a full classroom set, but maybe you have pods of students that are working together. So where I would have, 20 Focus Plus headsets, maybe I have 5 Cosmoses or 5 Pro Eyes, and it's groups of 4 that are working with the headset. One student in the headset at a time. The others can watch on a monitor that's connected to the computer that's running the headset, so that they can still see what's going on, but they don't directly have the headset on. They're not, using the controllers, but they could have, the checklist of what you need to do and lesson plans and things like that, that objectives that they're trying to learn as a small group. The Cosmos really is the sweet spot when it comes to price versus what you can get. It'll run most of the experiences out there. Almost all of them that we've seen in the education environment work great on the Cosmos. It does inside out tracking, so it doesn't need extra base stations. It's pretty simple when it comes down to, the hardware that you need to purchase versus what you need to get started. So it's really, you buy the headset, comes with the controllers, plugs into your computer with an adapter cord that comes with the headset, and you're ready to rock and roll as long as your PC is strong enough to run it. We'll talk about computers here in a second. But really, the Cosmos will get you a ton of great opportunities to teach things in VR. It'll run most of those experiences, like I said, and have the power to be able to do some of that higher end experiences, especially with the content creation and things like that. And like I said, it's budget friendly in the grand scheme of things. And then finally, your Pro Eye, that is going to be like your enterprise level, super high end VR headsets. This is great for high school and into college application. Again, small groups, high end applications, being able to work together in pairs or in small groups to be able to go through those experiences. For high schools and college programs that are looking at doing like maybe app development, or they're creating things in Unity or some other programming software to where they're building out actual environments or things like that, you can actually load that content up and view it in these tethered headsets, and the Pro Eye works great, especially if you're developing VR stuff. And there are some high schools that we've worked with in the past that are actually doing that as part of their curriculum for computer science, and it's becoming more and more popular. And certainly in the college environment, this is a great solution for that as well. So it's kind of like a ton of information thrown right at you about the headsets. But the thing that you should take away is that the Focus Plus is a great introductory piece of VR equipment. It comes with a bundled education package that we can work with you on. Or if you're looking for something a little bit towards the mid-level and the high-end stuff, the Cosmos is best bang for your buck. Pro Eye is for your high-end development style of experiences. So for the Cosmos and the Pro Eye, like I said, they run off of PCs. So alongside that headset, you're gonna need to buy a computer or retrofit or figure out if you have technology already at the school that accomplishes what you need. So for tethered headsets, they require PCs to store the content, whereas the Focus Plus, that standalone device, either has onboard memory where you can download a limited number of apps straight to the headset, or it could have like a micro SD card or an external storage device that you can plug into the headset and be able to access that content. Tethered headsets don't have that, so they require PCs to have the downloaded software on in the desktop and being able to access it through the computer. It also feeds the video and power to the headset. So, whereas the Focus Plus is run off a battery, the Cosmos and the Pro Eye require extra power to be able to run, and part of that is from the PC. The important thing to note is that for specs on a VR ready PC, you want a mid-level processor. So something like an i5, i7 and up should do it. Ryzen 5 on the AMD side is great, what we use for our VR rigs. A minimum of 16 gigs of RAM. That's super important, especially when you're trying to run these higher end video experiences, the higher end VR experiences, excuse me. And then a mid to high end graphics card or GPU. That's going to be the biggest ticket item because you're going to plug that VR headset straight into the graphics card. It's going to rely on the GPU to do a lot of the video rendering and the processing and send that signal of that information back up to the headset so that you can actually see what you're doing. So, typically a VR build for us with everything included. So we're talking a desktop with a monitor, mouse, keyboard, the right parts internally to run the headset, plus a VR headset like the Cosmos, comes out to about $3,500. So if you do the math and kind of how I was talking about the small groups, you can do something like around $4,000 for 4 of those Focus Plus headsets with the education bundle. So one headset per student, or you could do a group of 4 students for relatively the same cost, working on a desktop option to have that higher end VR, but also, be able to see the cost difference between the two. So they're pretty close if you're looking at, okay, I'm going to have a group of 4 work at the stationary headset. We've had a number of different schools outfit labs in kind of like almost like a setup style to where you're going to, walk into a classroom and they have, so Holly High School here in Minnesota is a great example. They have a classroom they've outfitted with 16 VR rigs. So they're spaced out every, 6 to 10 feet, somewhere in there. I'm not actually sure how far apart they are in the classroom. We recommend kind of 8 feet as the kind of the perfect size VR, area, so that you can walk around in those experiences and be able to access that content from a lot of different angles and not bump into things or worry about extra tracking materials needed for controllers or things like that. So, they've got their headsets and their computers spaced out throughout this classroom. It's divided down the middle so that you can have 8 on one side, 8 on the other. And they have kind of like a check-in system where, okay, the science teacher is going to come in on Monday and use it from 2 to 3. The history teacher is going to come in from 3 to 4, et cetera, et cetera. So great option if you're looking to build out kind of like a lab style setting for VR. A lot of great applications, a lot of great use cases for building out a full classroom space. If you don't have that ability, a couple of different hardware things that we should talk about as far as supplemental stuff would be something like a cart. So for the schools that don't have the ability to just like retrofit a whole lab or, change a classroom into a VR space, a mobile cart is super helpful in being able to use VR in lots of different areas within the school. Because now all of a sudden, all you have to do is plug in a power strip that's connected to this cart and you can power everything you need to. The cart can go in different classrooms, different buildings all over the place within the district if you need it to, and you can just touch more students and be able to have that access given to a lot more environments. The other things that, as far as other accessories go, wireless adapters are really common and something to consider. It adds anywhere between $350 to $400 to your overall price tag to add that VR wireless adapter to your overall package. But then you get rid of that tethered, experience, or where, okay, I have my Cosmos headset or my Pro Eye headset that's attached to a PC, and that's all the farther I can go is the length of that cord. I'm limited in where I can walk around. I might be, I might have to have a second person helping me with, making sure I don't get tangled up in the cord. Whereas a wireless adapter gets rid of the need to be connected to that PC. Runs off of an infrared camera and a battery pack that your headset would run off of. And it's really actually a pretty easy thing to set up. You just need an expansion slot in your motherboard and your PC. So it kind of goes back to, PC requirements for VR. But is a really great solution if you want to give that more freedom with your VR experience. Additional trackers, that three-pronged deal in the middle of the screen here, that's something that you could strap to someone's leg or a belt and tracks movement from other parts of you in the experience rather than just, the headset and the two controllers that you have. So there's a number of different experiences now that are starting to utilize additional trackers more. It's not a super popular add-on or accessory, but there are certainly apps out there that require it. There's a really great CPR training app from a company called Dual Good Health, where you actually put, Vive trackers on your hands, and when you're doing CPR, those trackers read your movement and they can give you feedback on how well you're doing CPR, things like that. They also have haptics inside those trackers. So, they'll actually vibrate if you do certain things within different apps, and they'll give you that feedback that you can actually feel, which is a pretty cool additional kind of feature for the accessory. And then finally, additional base stations, especially if you're working in an environment where, you have lots of VR headsets that are on the higher end spectrum. They don't do like the inside out tracking themselves, or they require base stations. Extra base stations that you can mount from the ceiling or on the wall or on camera stands and move them around. Those will help your tracking experience. For a lot of the current generation headsets, so, like your Cosmos, like I said, don't actually need these base stations, but if you're to add extra accessories to that headset, like the wireless adapter, or there's some other facial tracking, different face plates that you can add to the Cosmos or the Cosmos Elite. Kind of getting into the weeds of some of the higher end stuff, but there are certainly applications where additional base stations would come in handy. And finally, before we wrap up here, I just wanted to pass on a little bit of bonus info. VR can be expensive, but that doesn't mean it has to be inaccessible. For high schools, especially, Carl Perkins grants are a great source of funding. CTE, exploration, education, there's a lot of tie-ins with virtual reality, and there's buckets of money out there from Carl Perkins grant that can help feed into your technology purchase. So if I'm looking at, getting an education, a STEM lab or a STEAM lab or something like that, where we're going to do career pathways, exploration, we're going to do job shadows in VR, we're going to do different apps that are more focused on trades and other skills. All of that stuff can potentially qualify for Carl Perkins money. And it's one that we have seen the most schools have success with when they're looking for dollars to help purchase VR. Colleges, there's also grants out there as well. There's a ton of education focused funding sources out there. I've got a link on the screen, bitespeed.com/resources/funding. This is a great site on our webpage. It lists 60 to 70 different grants and kind of gives a little synopsis of who can qualify, what the grant is based on, and the use case for it. I would encourage you, if you're looking for funding opportunities for VR, that would be, I would say that's definitely your first stop when you're starting to look for those, those funding buckets. And then finally, multi-use machines. A lot of high-end computers with graphics cards can be used for curriculum and VR. So, when I'm saying, back to the PC requirements, having a mid to high-end GPU, a lot of your curriculum-based programs within the school already will require, hardware that's either VR ready or very close to it. So stuff like Project Lead the Way. If you have labs that are devoted to AutoCAD and engineering stuff, certainly like the Adobe suite, those type of applications, those type of classes, they require some beefy hardware that a lot of times, is, like I said, either going to be VR ready or very close to it. So if you have stuff like that already in the school, that's a great way to, take a look at that, see, okay, well, maybe we just need to buy a headset rather than a full bundle, full package, PC, everything included. Or on the flip side, if those programs need new equipment, like your Project Lead the Way lab, for example, say they need to update their desktops for what they're doing. That's a great way to split the cost between different departments, or kind of have more uses for those machines to stretch your dollars and make them go farther. So ways to kind of, multi-use them, get them used all day throughout the day, or and multiple times for multiple reasons. It's a great way to split up the cost and not have to double dip and be like, okay, we got to buy PLTW machines, we got to buy, VR machines on top of that. You could use the same machines for both use cases. So just some things to think about as you're going into this year, and maybe thinking about adding VR to your classrooms and in your districts. That's really it. We're 10 minutes longer than I thought we'd be, so that's great. I don't see any questions in our Q&A option, so I just want to say thank you to everybody who jumped on today and joined with us. Talking about VR hardware and kind of what am I looking to buy as a school. My contact information is there on the screen. I would encourage you to shoot me an email, give me a call, shoot me a text, whatever you feel comfortable doing. If you have questions about virtual reality, its use cases, hardware, apps, anything, training, you name it. I would encourage you to reach out to us here at Bitespeed. We'd love to work with you. Like I said, we've been doing this at a really high level on the education side of things for a good long while, and we've kind of got a really good pulse on what's happening in the schools. We'd love to be a partner with you if you're about to take the plunge into adding VR into your district. So thank you again. For those of you that have watched all the way through on the YouTube video, thank you for sticking around as well. Feel free to, like I said, leave your questions in the comments, like, subscribe, do all that great stuff. We really appreciate you, and I just want to say good luck with the rest of the school year. I know things are getting started all over the country now. There's some schools and some states that have been up and running for a couple weeks already, which seems crazy to me, but it is September 1st. So good luck with this fall. Please reach out if you have questions, and we'd love to be a resource for you in the future if you're looking at VR or any of the other things that Bitespeed does. So thank you so much. I'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.